Phillipsburg Land Use Board meeting, December 19th, 2024.
Adequate notice of this regular public meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act by posting notice on the bulletin board in the municipal building, by publishing in the Express Times and the Star Ledger, the official papers of the town of Phillipsburg, by posting notice on the website of the town of Phillipsburg, filing said notice with the town clerk of Phillipsburg, as well as furnishing said notice to those persons requesting it pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. As advertised, action may be taken at this meeting. The board policy is that the Town of Phillipsburg Land Use Board will not hear any new cases after 10 p.m. and no new witnesses after 10:30 p.m. Flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Bond is absent. Mr. Branch.
Here.
Mr. Brodsman.
Here.
Chairman Duffy.
Here.
Mr. Knoll.
Here.
Councilwoman Paulus is absent. Mr. Penrose.
Here.
Mayor Piazza.
Here.
Mr. Turnbull.
Here.
Mr. Zager is absent, and Vice Chairman Zwicker is absent.
We have a quorum.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on the minutes stated 11/25/24? Second. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections to the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, ayes have it. Do I have a motion on resolution 2024-3, denial for 88 Heckman Street?
Motion. I'll second it.
Just a reminder only that those people who attended the meeting can vote on this,
Okay.
unless they were absent and listened to the entire hearing.
Okay. Any discussion on the resolution? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Branch.
No.
Mr. Brodsman.
Yes.
Mr. Penrose.
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull.
Yes.
Mr. Knoll.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Zwicker's not here, and Chairman Duffy.
Yes. It's 5. Yep, 5-1.
Okay, we have to communicate with Mr. Edelstein regarding publication. We'll talk about that.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Completeness and public hearing. Completeness, 575 Memorial Parkway. We heard from Mr. Edelstein today that he would like to forward this to the next meeting. Okay. So we don't have anything to do with that.
Nope.
382, the hearings, 382, 384 South Main Street. They want to carry until the next meeting.
So at the last meeting, they asked for an adjournment to this date, and it was granted by the board, and they've asked for it to be carried to the January 23, 25 meeting. So, Mr. Chairman, this is the notice we're providing to all in attendance that application is being carried to January 23, 2025, and there will be no further public notice or publication.
Okay. And 540 Marshall Street has also asked to be carried.
Yes.
Correct, same thing, 540 Marshall Street had noticed for today, the notice is incomplete, so that is going to be carried to January 23, 2025, and once complete notice is made and jurisdiction is established, the public hearing will take place on January 23, 2025, but anybody who's already received notice will not receive any further notice beyond this evening.
Okay. Then we have the land use meeting dates and times for 2025. Is any discussion, questions on that? Thanksgiving is always the Monday because municipal, the League of Municipalities the week before. Yeah, okay. So it's still the fourth Thursday, yeah, but,
Yes, the fourth Thursday, but the.
except for Thanksgiving is the fourth Monday,
And then Christmas is the third
Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay, and the time is still 7 o'clock. Okay. Any questions on that then? Okay. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay, old business, public hearing on draft version of reexamination in the town of Phillipsburg's master plan. Sir.
Chairman, so this is a continuation of the discussion that occurred at last month's meeting. The Land Use Board's undertaking a re-examination of the master plan. This is prescribed by state statutes. So for the board and the public that may have not been at the last one, so as part of the re-exam, the state prescribes that at least every 10 years, the town should undertake a re-exam of the latest master plan, which for the town of Phillipsburg was 2013. There is a hard copy of the document that I'm going over. It's at the table over there if anybody hasn't picked one up. And if you're following along, we're on page 2 at the top. 2013 re-exam was an update from the 2004 re-exam. As part of the re-exam, New Jersey requires the board to review a number of items. So they want you to look at major problems and objectives related to land development in the municipality at the time of adoption at the last re-exam. They would like you to review to the extent which such problems, objectives have been reduced or have increased subsequent to date, the extent to which there have been significant changes in assumptions, policies, objectives forming the basis for the re-exam since the last time it was addressed and reviewed. There's a number of items they ask you to look into as part of that. They also indicate the specific changes recommended for the master plan or development regulations, if any, including underlying objectives, policy standards, or whether a new plan or regulation should be prepared, should be considered. Recommendations of the planning board concerning incorporation of redevelopment plans adopted pursuant to the redevelopment housing regulations into a land use element plan or of the municipal master plan. Goes on from there. It also asks to review the recommendations of planning board concerning locations for appropriate development of public electrical vehicle infrastructure, but not limited to commercial districts, areas proximate to public transportation and similar facilities as part of a re-exam. The basis of the re-exam, as I indicated, the last one was done in 2013, the prior one was 2004, and the town had last adopted a complete master plan in 1988, and did its initial re-exam of that document in 96. It's not uncommon for towns to have a master plan that subsequent years they generally just do a re-exam instead of a complete revision to the document. This time the town land use board is undertaking a re-exam as permitted by the state regulations. So Chairman and Board, as part of this, if we go over to page 3 in this re-exam document, we listed all the goals and objectives from the prior master plan and as amended by the subsequent re-exams. Any of the goals or objectives that were in the prior documents that were indicated to be removed or no longer applicable were not included here. So as we list them here is how we found them in the prior documents. Chairman, I could go through these individually or just maybe touch base on each of the high-level topics.
I touch base on the high-level topics. Does anybody have disagreement with that?
So the goals and objectives from the prior documents included topics on conservation, generally dealing with preservation of environmental features, and related matters. It also went into talking about the land use plan, trying to establish goals and objectives related to that. It touched based on housing, touched based on circulation. This number of the circulation goals listed here are taken from the latest circulation plan that the board recently adopted. That continues through. The latest circulation plan added quite a number of objectives related to that, so we actually end up jumping all the way to page 8. Another area was community facilities, recreation, and open space. It touched base on historic preservation. And actually touched base in that in 2 different elements. So then that brings us to page 10. The next section that the regulation asked the board to look at is to review major problems that were identified in the prior one. So on page 10 under section 3, what we did was we took all the major problems that were identified in the prior reports and listed them as they were written in the prior report. So there was a clear picture of what the prior documents prior land use boards have developed for your goals, objectives, and your major problem identified. On page 11, there was an edit since the last meeting that incorporated discussion on Howard Street redevelopment. In the 2013 re-exam, there was a section under recommendations and a discussion section that they touched base on Howard Street redevelopment as related to incorporating residential development, because the redevelopment plan at the time that covered that area incorporated residential when it was previously not residential. So the re-exam plan looked at that conflict that would create by adding residential in an industrial zone. So it's highlighted in the boards in yellow, and the public it's highlighted in gray on the bottom 11. That's an edit that's been made since the last meeting. As part of this process in the meeting tonight, if there's any changes, additions that can be incorporated into any action taken, or potentially feedback from the public can be incorporated into the document. Those are all the major problems as they were listed in the various documents. We then move into the top of page 13. This is section 4. So as part of the re-exam, it requests that you review the status of the major problems previously identified. So Chairman, this part I would recommend going through each one of these items, because this is where we start clarifying potentially the position of where things stand as it is today. So this would be a good area to get feedback. The comments that are listed in here were based on feedback from the prior meeting and working with the subcommittee and prior experiences working with the board and the community. So the first problem statement was related to nuisances created by heavy manufacturing adjacent to residential areas. So we've indicated the comment was reviewed, recommended that the language surrounding industrial redevelopment areas be adjusted to emphasize flexibility in the use of existing industrial areas to fulfill the best land use, whether continuing as an active industrial redevelopment to new industrial or rezoning and redevelopment to residential, depending on market conditions. The original problem statement may have been led to conflict with other elements where have read that it was not promoting industrial uses within the town, particularly a redevelopment of existing industrial sites that were active or vacant. So the recommendation is to be in line with the town's general census was that it's open to both types of redevelopment or uses. The next item, number 2 on page 13, lack of land available for future development. So we did review this comment. It's recommended that a distinction between vacant and incompatible land uses be recognized to better communicate the understanding that existing active uses are not assumed to be incompatible. So the town has a long history of varying uses. So certain industries came to town, they built housing around that to support those industries. Modern planning might push conflicting elements away from each other, but Phillipsburg is very intertwined. So it's recommended that the re-exam and your master plan document consider that you do have that intrinsic element that you need to find a balance. Encroachment onto undeveloped property is number 3. So we reviewed the problem statement, which because of the lack of available developable property and because there is such a demand for development, many of Phillipsburg's steep slopes, ridges will be considered for construction. If not done properly, problems may occur with erosion, structural stability, obstruction of scenic views, and it suggested, the statement suggested developing regulation to protect those critical areas, whether by outside agencies or by the town. So we did review this comment. It are recommended that the town consider adoption of steep slope codes to mitigate risk of encroachment into induced erosion areas. So the comment was reviewed. Similar position as the last time was a recommendation for the town to undertake regulations to protect.
Okay.
So the idea with the re-exam is if there's a potential concern or issue, you can suggest ways for the governing body to enact regulation to address it or to promote an activity. So if you're trying to encourage development, you would say provide for zoning of this. If you're trying to potentially discourage something like development on steep slopes, you would ask them to develop a code to mitigate that or regulate that area. Zone boundaries of zoning ordinance no longer reflect existing uses. This goes back to, was last revised Reexam 96 to correct the problem. There are still deviations and need for variances. This is typically fully developed communities where land uses may be intermixed. So we did review this comment. The outcome was recommended that a comprehensive revision of the land use plan and related code at a later date is considered or recommended to the recommended. As part of this re-exam, it was not a comprehensive review of the land use plan or rewrite of the land use plan. But to address that problem statement, that's the recommendation. Substandard intersections was a concern problem statement. This item, the comment remains, and this was addressed as was a common theme as part of the circulation plan. So that was reviewed in quite detail as part of the circulation plan with suggestions and goals, additional goals and objectives to address that concern. The next problem statement was substandard streets. Again, that comment remains, but it's recommended to review the circulation plan as that was reviewed in quite extensive detail. Poor local circulation, again, is a comment that is remains, and it was addressed through the circulation plan. Poor regional circulation, that's another item that the comment remains, and it's directed to review the circulation plan. So that, again, provides goals and objectives to potentially manage that concern. Through traffic on local streets, the comment remains and it refers to the circulation plan. Number 10, we're on the bottom of page 14, apologies for that. This is a new edit that was in, so as pointed out in the prior items, this relates to the Howard Street redevelopment in the 2013 re-exam. Under section 4, recommended master plan and ordinance changes that were discussed of Howard Street in the 2013 re-exam on pages 28, 29. The full text of it's available in this document on 11 and 12. We reviewed that comment. That was more of a recommendation discussion item. It's recommended the development of residential uses in this area has not been feasible as the approved developments never materialized or spurred redevelopment as envisioned. Subsequently, the redevelopment authority and land use board have rezoned the area to allow industrial uses, and and as such has been approved as a use there. The prior statement is recommended to be removed, so as that point's not carried forward through future re-exams, because there's been action taken since 2013 to now that alters that position. In 2013, that item was added in there as it had noted that residential had been permitted as in the redevelopment area and there was a project pending. Then we go on to, on page 15, we continue to go through the document. So the current zoning of the current zoning state of the town of Phillipsburg was analyzed in 2013 as part of 2013 Master Plan Reexam. The Reexam recommended changes to the land development ordinance based on recommendations from the 2004 Master Plan updates, land use element, as well as Ingersoll Rand and riverfront redevelopment studies. The proposed changes are outlined below with analysis of the current state. So within the 2013, it tied back to the 2004 Master Plan, so we reviewed those items. So item 1 was to create a multifamily zone to reflect the existing multifamily housing in the R50 zone west of Roseberry Street, including portions surrounding a B2 zone, as well as other non-conforming multifamily developments through the town. We've indicated the comment was reviewed. Since then, the town actually undertook in 2014 a zoning map update that was an attempt to address that comment. Another item included a portion of the I-1 zone located east of Warren Street, south of the extension of Anderson Street Middle School residential properties in the R50 zone. So that comment still remains. There's still a pocket of I-1 zone located off Warren Street. It's generally right across from the park entrance. There's a commercial industrial complex there that's surrounded by residential. Convert a portion of the I-1 zone bounded by Wilson, Anderson, which is now Fleming, Warren Street, and Railroad, vacant land to the R50 zone. The comment was reviewed. It appears in 2014 a zoning map update adjusted the zoning for that property. That's generally the property next to the Firth Youth Center. It's currently owned by the Firth Youth Center. Number 4 on page 15, we reviewed the B2 zone along Route 22, make appropriate boundary adjustments to reflect actual development, prepare design standards to enhance the appearance and accessibility of the corridor, incorporate appropriate recommendations from a 2009 Route 22 corridor improvement plan. That reference plan, for clarity, was prepared by Warren County, the state of New Jersey. It wasn't a town plan. The comment was found to be addressed. There is ongoing efforts needed to update to the Route 22 corridor standards, but the town did make changes to its code book to incorporate standards to actually request of developments to incorporate to their best ability. So to an extent, you'll see that sidewalks have been added along 22 for properties such as CVS, McDonald's, Arby's, Popeyes, as they've come around, because that's an element of that corridor standards. Number 5, the B2 highway business zone at the center of Roseberry Street should be rezoned for neighborhood commercial uses such as retail and service businesses to complement the Phillipsburg Commerce Park redevelopment area that is Bridgepoint complex now, and the surrounding residential neighborhoods. The comment was reviewed. This has been corrected as of the 2014 zoning map. The small I-2 heavy industrial zone on Lock Street north of Ridge appears to be remnant of the original industrial zoning that spanned that area for the Ingersoll Rand site prior to redevelopment designation. The zone primarily consists of residential properties and should be merged into the R75 zone. That comment also was reviewed, and it appears to be addressed as part of the 2014 zoning map. That area was just about below Valley View, and there's a wooded tract. The town has a parkland. There's apartments over there. That was all Ingersoll Rand property at one point, so it was all heavy industrial zone, but it's been subsequently rezoned not to be industrial. The next item, merge the B3 zone of Union Square into the B4 zone, make adjustments to the list of permitted uses as outlined in a table within the code book. Comment is reviewed. This appears to be corrections or adjustments, revisions were made in 2014 zoning map. Additionally, ordinance number 2015-02, adopted in January, has revised the list of permitted uses. So that comment was reviewed and considered addressed. Moving to page 16, number 8, there's a comment to convert part of the B2 zone at the southern end of South Main into a new B5 zone to differentiate it from highway-oriented B2 zone along Route 22 and adjust the list of permitted uses outlined in a table referenced in the code book. Comment was reviewed. This was addressed in the 2014 zoning map. An additional ordinance 2015-02, adopted in January 2015, revised the list of permitted uses. So these are good examples where there's a problem that was identified. Recommendations were made over towards the future land use board and governing body. That item was, after the re-exam was adopted, they then looked through for ways to implement it. So to implement it, they amended the zoning map and adjusted some of the zoning properties.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go through this, some of the goals, objectives could be short-term, that could be addressed in a couple weeks. Some of them might be long-term, that might take 10 or 20 years, because as you see, some of these go back to the late 80s, that still occur. Number 9, to permit residential infill as a condition of the B4, B5 zones in accordance with R50 standards, where more than 50% of the block is currently occupied for residential. We reviewed this comment. Code section 625-68 of the town code enables this conditional use since passage of ordinance 2014-13 in May of 2014. So another example of a issue, and a solution came about not too long after the re-exam was implemented. So that was a review of all the major problems that were identified in the prior reports. Any problem statement that didn't appear to be addressed in the 2013, 2004, 96, and prior were outlined here. The next section the state asks you to review, which this is on page 17, section 5. It asks that as part of the re-exam should identify significant changes that have occurred in the state, county, and municipal policies and objectives. One of the items they ask you to address is consideration of climate change hazard vulnerability in land use plan. This is as a result of Public Law 2021 C6 that was adopted February 4th, 2021 by Governor Murphy. Under the amended laws, requires municipalities to incorporate a climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment into any master plan land use element adopted after the signing. Re-exams of the land use elements adopted prior to the law are not required to incorporate this assessment. However, future updates to the master plan land use element require an examination of current future threats to the town of Phillipsburg associated with climate change related hazards. This analysis shall be based on the most recent natural hazard projections as well as the best scientific knowledge provided by New Jersey Environmental Protection Agency. So to be clear on this, this is a new change to the planning regulations that impacts the land use plan. As part of this re-exam, it did not incorporate an overhaul or complete revision of the land use plan. This action would be more appropriate. Not too long ago, the board did undertake an update to its land use plan, and the timing of the adoption and this regulation coincided. So the town will actually have to undertake another update of the land use plan, which will actually time well because the state's issuing new guidance on COA housing that requires an update to the housing plan and land use plan. So the town can incorporate all of those in future updates. The second part of that regulation relates to hazard vulnerability. So as for this re-exam, it acknowledges that in January 10th, 2022, Warren County received FEMA approval for its multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Phillipsburg is part of that, covered under that plan, which is an update from the prior plan adopted and approved in 2016. In the current plan, the Warren County Department of Public Safety divides the county into 5 regional subgroups based on regional risk present. The town of Phillipsburg, along with neighboring townships of Lopat, Pohat, Harmony, Greenwich, are in southern Warren County Group 2. Natural hazards deemed threats to the municipality across the county, such as dam failure, drought, earthquakes, flooding, landslides, hurricanes, severe weather, wildfire, are unchanged from the 2016 plan. The 2022 plan instead expands its scopes to consider several human-based hazards, in addition to the previous plan's assessment of hazardous materials issues. And the 2022 plan considers the threat of animal disease, civil unrest, crop failure, cyber attack, economic collapse, pandemic, power failure, and terrorism. The inclusion of these human-based hazards is critical to establishing a basis for risk assessment and evaluating decisions about risk control for both the town of Phillipsburg and other municipalities across the county. So by that, you're incorporating that the county has establishes the mitigation plan for the town that covers the town, and that should be incorporated into your planning tools as part of your re-exam. So would be another document to consider for guidance. The next major change is, under change and challenges, is the topic of cannabis with the passage of NJSA 24-6I3. Cannabis retail is legal in the state of New Jersey. This re-examination does not propose any changes to current town policies regarding cannabis. Cannabis retail presents a potential opportunity for municipalities in the search of new commercial rateables. However, cannabis remains illegal at federal level, limiting New Jersey growers and retail to the state internal market. This brings its own risk of market saturation and collapse in rateables should the industry grow faster than interstate rate demand. So what that's entailed is that there is new land uses that are available to the town to zone for that did not exist prior, and that there's challenges that come with that type of zoning that the board should be aware of. And at this time, there's no proposed zoning changes to change anything that's on the current zoning map as a result of this, or any other plans in place by the town. The next item addressed, which is required by the statute indicated before, is electrical vehicle charging stations. July 9th, 2021, there's an amendment to the MLUL, which enacted stated variances will not be required for applications and the proposed purpose of the submittal is for installation of electrical vehicle supply equipment or make-ready spaces. Installation shall be considered permitted accessory use and permitted accessory structures in all zoning districts within any municipality. So the states have determined that is a new use and how it can be, what the ability of the town is to regulate it. So that's a change since 2013. Additionally, such infrastructure shall not be subject to site plan or variance relief for installation of any gasoline service station, existing retained establishment or other existing building. The approval shall occur through issuance of a zoning permit conditioned on compliance with the provided criteria. Criteria for installation of electric vehicle supply shall be equipment for buildings with 5 or more dwelling spaces, also stated in addition to the model land use requirements. So the state in 2021 adopted policies that established EV parking as permitted uses and accessory uses, and how that's regulated by the land use boards. And what the recommendation in the recommendation section would be for the governing body to adopt ordinances that implement what this regulation says. It's very similar to RSIS, the residential site improvement standards, where the state went in and set standards for residential, and the towns had to update their standards. Open space and recreation plan, since 2013, in September 2018, Warren County published an amendment to its county and open space recommendation plan. The amendment provided an updated strategic inventory assessment of the county's natural resources, particular focus on protecting lands responsible for maintaining water quality. Most of the available water for residential agricultural uses in the county is supplied via groundwater recharge. This is due to Warren County's location within the Highlands, which features many prime groundwater recharge areas. The amended county open space and recreation plan, 3 major steps to preserve groundwater recharge resources, protect water quality, determining areas where preservation will be most effective, targeting resources for preservation of these areas, prioritizing lands for protection. The county initiated an effort utilizing GIS mapping and other technology tools to analyze and identify water quality, water resource attributes of the region throughout the county. Several identified areas provide benefits to the town of Phillipsburg. To determine the best course of action, hydrology, stream, aquifer quality, aquatic ecosystem functions were mapped and analyzed as part of the county study. With this data, Warren County can enhance their efforts to preserve water quality and supply not only within the county, but the wider Highlands region. So what that is a new county level planning document tool and data that's available for the land use to utilize going forward as appropriate. So that is why that's listed there. The town is very aware it's in the Highlands and has worked actively with the Highlands. I don't believe there's any actionable items out of that other than to be aware of it and to use that as a guiding tool going forward. The county also updated in 2023, updated their transportation master plan, which was in the response of the county's build out in traffic within the county. As they have seen in the past 5 years, a rise in warehouse development, increasing freight volumes on undeveloped 1 and 2-way roadways. The issue directly impacts Phillipsburg, which a few years has construction multiple warehouses. The county negatively impacted roadway infrastructure and circulation. To resolve the issue, the county undertook efforts to identify a truck route map to be implemented with larger truck infrastructure. Highlands currently offers grant programs to mitigate negative traffic impacts associated with warehouse development occurring in the Highlands region and select Warren County. Warren County is proactive in analyzing trucking route infrastructure. A study in 2020 by the county analyzed traffic impact with 15 industrial areas to assess the potential impacts at full build out under existing zoning. It determined that in almost every study area, existing transportation infrastructure would not support an increase without significant improvements that would need several years to fully implement. Since the study, the National Highway Transportation Administration has reported an increase in number of fatal traffic accidents in Warren County. In response, upcoming truck route map for Warren County directs all trucks and freight traffic to the nearest state or interstate roadway whenever possible. While this is just the start of a larger effort to reduce truck traffic related issues within the county, it's imperative to lay the foundation for a larger redevelopment of Warren County transportation infrastructure to meet the demand. As part of that document, the town, as part of the circulation plan that was updated, did review those documents and incorporate them into it. That was also incorporated into the designated truck route that was adopted by the town of Phillipsburg recently. So that's just another guiding tool to assist the town. Stormwater management plan update. In 2023, DEP adopted new municipal stormwater regulations and permits. The town's obligated to meet its requirements under the revised Tier A permit as conditions of permit renewals. Part of the requirements including develop and update municipal stormwater management plan, including all the necessary elements outlined in stormwater management rules. The town of Phillipsburg should incorporate updated municipal stormwater management plan as part of its master plan reexamination. So the town is undertaking working to update its stormwater management plan and planning tool that goes with that as part of compliance with the state regulation. The other item I touched base on, there is new additional round of affordable housing, fair share obligations. The state has provided guidance to the town on its obligation. As a result, it requires consider updating of the master plan's housing element and fair share plan to meet the requirements of these new regulations. So that lengthy discussion addressed significant changes that occurred since the 2013 master plan. So we move on to page 20. So this is changes and recommendations based on the review of the goals and objectives and major problem statements, the review of those. So this starts on page 20. This is section 6. Item number 1 is highlighted in the documents as there are some edits made to this statement. The land use subsection of the goals and objectives should include an objective statement, an objective to undertake a comprehensive update of the land use element to conform to the state requirements for incorporating a climate and hazard vulnerability assessment. So that addresses the state's requirement for the board to do that update, so that's setting that as a recommendation to be addressed at a later date. The truck subsection of the goals and objections section should include a consideration of Howard Street Industrial Bypass to reduce the impacts of industrial traffic on local streets. The trails subsection of the goals and objectives section should remove the goal to coordinate with developers in regard to Howard Street extension project interface with existing and proposed trails from the 2013 re-exam. The Howard Street Redevelopment Plan considers development alternatives relating to this area. So again, in 2013, what that re-exam development at the time was of the re-exam is different than what is now permitted there. So that's not applicable. Number 4, the housing subsection of the goals and objectives section should be updated to reflect recent changes to affordable housing, regulatory environment. Goal within should be revised. Goal A within should be revised to reflect COA's formal violation of Public Law 2024-C2 and the transfer of its regulatory functions to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. Available state funding programs for affordable housing have changed as a result. The reexamination does not review fourth-round obligations, as the rules require municipalities to undertake in-depth review to develop an updated housing element and fair share plan. This required update would be separate from this re-exam to be completed at a later date. Number 5, the parking subsection of the goals objectives section should be amended to include adopting New Jersey DCA guidance standards for electric vehicle parking. Section 6, the historic preservation subsection of the goals and objectives section should be updated to reflect the following developments. Establishment of a historic preservation plan in April 2017. The end of project funding for a facade improvement program. The program that existed prior does not currently exist. The completion of Phillipsburg Register of Historic Places. That was an item, that goal objective that's been addressed. The preservation subsection of goals and objectives should clarify the amount of regulatory weight the proposed architectural style manual will have to better guide the Historic Preservations Commission authority over the planning interest in the historic districts. Number 8, under major problems identified, the problem of nuisance created by industrial uses should be updated to reflect the town's opinion that existing active industrial uses not assumed to be incompatible, that redevelopment of abandoned industrial uses into new industrial uses is allowed to consider a range of alternate uses in addition to residential, depending on local conditions. Number 9 is highlighted. That's a newer edit. This has to do with the discussion on pages 28, 29 of the re-exam report. That report should be removed and not carried forward as recommendation or problem statement. The following sections reflect the proposed goals. Starting through page 20, towards the end of the document, what we did, we relisted all the goals, objectives, and major problem statements with all the edits as proposed in the re-exam. So there was a clear picture of what the goals and objectives would look like and the problem statements would look like going forward. Now, we found in some of the prior documents, it may have been unclear what goals and objectives remained and what the problem statements were. So that starts on the bottom of page 20 and continues to the end of the document.
Okay.
So at this time, I can answer questions, but there should be feedback and discussion from the board on any questions related to goals or objectives, problem statements, changes to what you see here, and then there definitely needs to be input from the public. And
Okay. Well, my question really is the historic preservation. I know we're laying it out here in our master plan, but does that go over to the historic commission as a tool for them when they're figuring out their goals and objectives and what they need to do?
so everything the historic preservation does should be guided from your master plan and the re-exam.
Okay.
And the historic preservation plan that was adopted as a result of the
Right.
re-exam. What was found, or what's recommended in here, is to review the intent,
Right.
acknowledge that items that were asked to be addressed were addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at page 20, on page 20, number 6,
Right.
reflect that there is a historic preservation plan as of April 2017 that should guide them going forward, and also the master plan should be reviewed.
Okay.
Facade program doesn't exist,
Right.
and that the other major item is number 7 about how much weight the Preservation Commission's authority is supposed to have over projects and the styling and the historic elements of the community. In the prior master plans, that may not have been as clear, so going forward, what this is doing is recommending that the governing body provide that clarification in the ordinances.
Okay.
So they know what's desired of them, and then for the land use board knows what the level of input from them is supposed to be.
Right. Okay.
And also the governing body also, that will help them guide them when they get input from those members.
Right. Good. Anyone on board have any other questions?
I have a quick question on the end of project funding for facade improvement. When was that?
I don't have an exact date, but the last so many years, the last 7 years I've been involved, the funding for that hasn't existed. Hasn't existed. Bill, do you?
I don't remember when that ended.
Is that for historic buildings only?
It applied, a lot of your downtowns in historic districts, so they were used, I know there was a facade program to update the business facades and stuff down there.
It's probably a grant program.
Yeah.
It was a grant or state funded.
State funded.
It's expired.
So it's expired here, but it's still funding that you could find?
It's
No, I don't know.
generally not,
It's,
not in the form that it was here.
right, this was out of the state. The state had some sort of grant
For this program?
for this program. They no longer have it. I mean, I'm sure there are other entities that may have something, but you've got to find them on your own.
So in the prior re-exam, it identified this as a potential goal objective, that program was available. The program doesn't exist currently, so it's removing that as a item. It's not preventing anybody from getting grants or the town offering those grants, it's just saying that that program doesn't exist. So in the next re-exam that the town undertakes, since it doesn't exist now, it will be eliminated, so you don't have to review the status.
The historic program, preservation plan that was in place in April 2017, do they have funding for the historic upkeep, or is it?
That would be a question for the governing body of how they budget those items. I'm not able to speak to that exact line item.
But I don't think you have funding for upkeep of buildings and so forth?
Not for, well, we've given some money to Roseberry House for historic.
For historic?
They've gone to the county and been awarded grants through the county open space, municipal and charitable. The train station has been awarded through municipal and charitable with our support and our backing. We went to the municipal and charitable to speak on their behalf. So we have gone out to try to get different funding, mostly through the county, for those historical rehabs.
Do we have a count on Main Street of how many historic buildings we have?
You do, as part of the historic preservation plan, it lists all the known properties that were identified, whether they're on a federal, state register. And then I believe the current commission is also reviewing that document, is identifying if any additional item properties should be added.
Okay, no further questions.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor, you okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No one else? Okay. This time I'm going to open it for public comment. Public wishes to speak, please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address.
David Morrisette, 5 Fairview Heights, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Over the years, I've largely been pleased with the town. Occasionally I've been disappointed with some things. Tonight, for the first time, I have to say that I'm actually angry and disgusted. I opened this document after the last meeting. And when I opened this document, there was nothing in here about the Howard Street project. I would have thought that if something changed, I've got another notification, but that's okay. So the document was posted on the website. I looked to see if the document was posted on the website, because if it wasn't posted on the website for the meeting, I knew I had to get in and I had to check the document to see if there were any changes. The document was posted on the website, has the exact same revised December 2nd, 2024 date, and there is nothing in that document that's posted on the website about the Howard Street warehouse. The fact is that this town does not notify the public about significant changes that are going to be happening in the town. A warehouse down on Howard Street is a significant change to the residents down there along Mercer Street and in that area. So the notification of important things like trucks on Center Street and warehouses down there along Howard Street fall to groups that are run by many of the individuals that are sitting here in this room tonight. I distributed the information that I had. I checked the report on the website that was going to be presented tonight, and there was nothing about Howard Street. Had we known that, we would have gotten that information out to the public. So, the people in Phillipsburg do not want a warehouse on Howard Street. In 4 short weekends, 2 weekends, we got 93 signed letters from residents that do not want a warehouse on Howard Street. Additionally, you have received, or should have seen, a petition that went in an attempt to overturn the ordinance that had over 400 signatures of registered voters from Phillipsburg that do not want a warehouse down there on Howard Street. Although there was a heavy concentration of people on Mercer Street, Those signatures were from throughout the town. So, why the lack of public input and transparency? Don't you think that public hearings should have been held before this draft plan was actually made? A number of years ago, a mayor held something called a design charrette, where he invited people to come down, not to make a document, but to get their input about what should be down there at the riverfront. This appears, and I know of no public meetings other than the public hearing that we're having tonight to discuss this document. Now, who all, can anybody tell me who all participated in the input in this document? It was mentioned that there was input from the public. Who from the public actually had input on this document?
Chairman, if I may.
You may.
So that comment was based on that you had the public hearing at the last month that was open to the public, that was publicly advertised for this document.
Also, the circulation plan is a part of it, which was featured heavily last year under the previous administration. Public meeting, public hearing. We walked the entire town. We advertised ahead of it. I think I even put out videos of ourselves doing the circulation plan, which is included in this document.
Yeah. And the circulation plan is a piece of this document. It is not this document. Fair enough on the circulation plan.
Sure.
You did a fairly good job getting that out there. This is not the circulation plan. This is a master plan. And this is something that is going to live with the residents of Phillipsburg for at least 10 years. And things are founded and ordinances are supported by this document. So there was no other public input. You didn't have residents come in, you didn't talk to people on Mercer Street, anything like that?
So, yeah, kind of. I would like to just point out the obvious. So during the last, I'll just say the election, I campaigned on wanting this project. I won overwhelmingly in that district. I pulled no punches, made no bones about it. I support this project. That was one of my heaviest won areas because I explained to them what it meant to me, what I thought about it.
So if I go...
So your petition that you filed, which was not accurately representing, because it wasn't a valid petition. When people came out and voted and had to make up their mind when they saw the billboards that laid out the anti-warehouse stuff, that the circulation flyers that said, if you vote for this guy, it's pro-warehouse, and they still voted for me, they were okay with it.
So in the last election where there was a anti-warehouse vote?
There was no anti-warehouse vote. The pro-warehouse people won.
In the last election?
Yes, last year, this time.
Let him finish, please.
Okay.
In the last election where there was an anti-warehouse vote, 2 of the 3 candidates won that election. In the last election, in the very last election, that party did not run on anti-warehouse because one of their candidates flipped and they couldn't run on it. So you're wrong on that. That when you ran, there was not an anti-warehouse. There was not an anti-warehouse sentiment. 2 elections ago,
Okay.
Save the Library, Save the Riverfront, and 2 of the 3 candidates that ran on that won. And the third one lost by 15 votes. Okay, so who was involved in writing the master plan?
The reexamination,
The reexamination.
there was a subcommittee.
Who was on the subcommittee?
Mr. Bond and Vice Chair.
Yeah, Vice Chairman Zwicker
Yep,
and Duplanner.
yes.
Okay. And so did the 3 of them get any input from any public residents?
There's no requirement beyond public notice under the MLUL for reexamination The town did exceed the minimum requirements of the MLUL by holding, this is the second public hearing on this item, on the matter.
There actually wasn't a public hearing last month.
Scott, I believe that was publicly advertised.
It was publicly advertised, but
But
it was no
carried.
public hearing.
It was really carried. So the public's opportunity to be heard is at a public meeting like tonight, and you are being heard.
Yes.
And this is the public's opportunity for the board to consider the public's opinion and then make a decision on this reexamination report, which could be to adopt it, to table it, to hold further public meetings. And I'm going to review those options with the board after the public comment today, but there's no requirement that the public be invited to a board subcommittee.
Correct. And Attorney Wilhelm, I agree with you 100%. You are following the letter of the law. But when you are making something as dramatic as putting a warehouse down next to a residential area that is overburdened economically, it's overburdened racially, and it is an environmentally distressed area. It is a place that more environmental harm is devastating. Don't you think maybe we should do more than what is just legally required?
Well, that's what the board's going to consider tonight.
No, you're going to do what's legally required. You're not going to do more. You're not going to go down and you're not going to invite the residents of Mercer Street in that area to come and have input. Myself and many of the people in this audience have walked those streets and we have heard the residents, and they've pleaded with us and supported us morally and financially to stop the warehouse. That's all I have.
If I may, just to clarify for the board, the residents' input, the appropriate consideration is that you would like to see either a goal or objective to not permit industrial zoning along Howard Street. I'm trying to articulate the way it would be formatted in a re-exam.
They do not want the Perone Howard Street property to be industrial. They want it to be Riverside Residential, Riverside Heritage, or Riverside Commercial. And along with the heritage, they put a slash at open space. And anecdotally, from my conversations and the conversations of others in this room, the order of priority is they want to see open space, heritage, they'd love to see a museum down there. They'd love to see commercial, something that goes along with the river. I've even heard grocery store, it doesn't exactly go along with the river, but, and number 4, industrial, they don't want that. Oh, I'm sorry, 4 was residential, and they said they don't really prefer residential as one of their top picks, but they'd much rather have residential than have a warehouse down there. Okay? Thank you very much.
So just a point of clarity.
Sure.
4-1 in 2021 was, in the warehouse area, was Marino, Lutz, and Fulper, top vote getters. In 2-1, just up the street, was Lee Clark, Fulper, Marino, top vote getters.
Discussion.
So,
In that area, in the neighborhood that butts directly against the warehouse.
I'm telling you what myself
Okay.
and others have heard. Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure everybody's accurate here. What's that?
I'm sorry. Hold, no.
If you want to.
Anyone wants to speak to the microphone, name
Sims.
and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Fred Stine. I work with the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. It's an environmental advocacy organization based in Bristol, but we focus on the entire Delaware River watershed. We have about 28,000 residents. And I thought it was important information being shared with Mr. Morrisette and the board. And it still doesn't eliminate the need to gather information from the community. What he's coming up with anecdotal information, you're basing your discussion on votes, which is a way of measuring support. So is anecdotal information. But the more important is, and it is such a significant change in land use in the town, it's going to impact, obviously the folks living down there, but others too. It would be criminal not to go down and have those types of charrettes where you're coming in and you're walking away saying, we truly gave, maybe they'll come out and they'll say, maybe we want a warehouse, maybe we want those jobs, but you don't know that for sure. And I don't think that that's basing the votes on a definitive measure of what the folks want. They were looking at you as the big picture, not just physically, but the big picture of your position. So it's not just the number of votes that you got. So if you do go back and you're going to be, as you were saying, you're going to be reevaluating what are your options today, clearly getting more public input, because sitting here tonight, just walking into this room and quickly reading and hearing you read the Howard Street, the new information on Howard Street, there's no time to really review that, digest it, discuss it, and then come back with some real meaningful public input. I have a question. So we did, Mr. Morrisette did circulate the reexamination maybe 2 weeks ago, I'm thinking. When was the new one, the one that's being discussed tonight, when was that finalized and circulated?
So as part of the internal quality control that I did as part of, for the hearing tonight, I reviewed any edits that needed to be incorporated that were not included clearly. So the section that changed in the document, when we reviewed the 2013 re-exam, we found that the section discussing Howard Street redevelopment was in the recommendations consideration section of it. It wasn't listed as a major problem statement or goal or objective in the re-exam. But we wanted to make it clear, because it is a sensitive topic in the town, that there's opinions on both sides, that that was potentially being suggested to be changed. It's being suggested to be changed. It's not a zoning change that's happening as part of this re-exam. In the 2013, there was a discussion on Howard Street being developed as residential. At the time in 2013, it was approved as residential redevelopment. It indicated because it was residential development, it would conflict with the surrounding industrial development that's already there. That there would be a need in the future to look at rezoning or planning tools of how that area between Howard Street going up to South Main would be envisioned based on the type of development that was proposed on what's now the Perone property for industrial warehousing. At the time it was residential. So what we're saying in this re-exam is recommending that the board remove that discussion, because it's no longer currently, as the redevelopment plan stands as of today, it does not it's included as industrial use, not residential. So the concern of balancing residential development against existing industrial doesn't exist anymore, because it's currently proposed to be industrial, no longer residential. This re-exam report does not change how that property is zoned. There's no zoning changes included in this plan. It's just removing the statement discussing that property being residential and the potential conflicts it created by becoming residential. That's all this is doing.
But that's a big change, though. I mean, if it's words being taken out, saying that in the old version, it said it was having industrial next to residential was a problem. Now, in words, you're saying having it next to residential is not a problem. But
No, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that there are certain things in the 2013 re-examination report that needed to be addressed. And he's saying now that issue has already been decided. For good, bad, whatever side you're on, the Howard Street industrial development is concluded, okay? And so that's not an issue that needs to be re-examined. He's just looking at the things that need to be re-examined, just like he suggested some other things can be removed because they've already been re-examined in the last 10 or 11 years. That's all. It's not giving an opinion as to whether it's good or bad. He's saying the debate over whether it should be residential or industrial has ended because the town acted.
Thank you for that.
But,
Thank you for that. And thank
but
you.
to clear up what your concern is, though, you may, with this re-exam, you may take an issue with how an area of town is zoned. Just like in the prior ones did, and the town set a goal or objective to look at that. That's an option you could present to ask the board to consider as part of the re-exam, that section may not be zoned that way or that particular use. You may not like drive-throughs on 22, so you may say you don't want to see drive-throughs on 22 because it causes this problem. Whatever it may be, or this type of housing, or you want to see grocery stores in town, so maybe you ask for that they put a problem statement that there's a lack of grocery stores into the re-exam and they should try to plan or facilitate providing for those type of uses. So that's potentially how you can incorporate your concerns into it.
So, and let me, I really, really appreciate you going into the details and helping me understand that. But my primary concern and what I started with was when did these changes become public? I mean, these are substantial changes, the whole Howard Street information in this new version. When did that get articulated in this plan versus this
The
one?
board is seeing it. The board is seeing it now. It was generally discussed at the last meeting and at the subcommittee that this was a conflict. So we've made it clear in this document now that's being presented. And when I did the discussion of it, I made sure to touch base that that was a change that wasn't available, that wasn't seen before in the document. So it did happen yesterday as part of quality control going through it, that potentially that concern, that discussion on Howard Street, which is at page 27, 28, 29 in the 2013 in the recommendations section, I believe I'm getting the title right, might be interpreted as a problem statement or a goal or objective that it warrants making it clear where that sits going forward.
I think, but in fairness to the gentleman, I think, Mr. O'Brien, I think his question is, this is a revised report dated December 2, and I think his question is, when was that made available to the public? Is that what you're
So the document that they were handed tonight is just available as of tonight with the edits I made tonight. There was an edition on December 2nd that was circulated, that was the most current one at the time.
So my point is, so if this was just made available yesterday, it really, for clear, transparent, good government, you would think that you'd want to, certainly I would think members of the planning board would want to feel like they're fully engaged. I don't think, I don't know, maybe they had time. I would think that if you're working, you may not have had time to really understand what these new changes are. And maybe they were hinted on or referenced in here. But this is substantial, so I really do hope when you do, after this meeting and you go back, that the board says, you know what, we really do want to understand this. And it would be great to get some real feedback, not just characterization by Mr. Morrisette, of what the community wants, but let's find out what the community wants. I think it's important, and it's legacy information, because these master plans last for 10 years, and there's changes in land use, changes in trucking, changes in environmental conditions, all of this, and it starts with decisions that you make here. So that's why I think it's much more to the communities and to your legacy to get that information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sara Hare, from HOPE. I'm also on the HOPE Environmental Commission,
How do you spell your last name, please?
HARE. In the 2024 Master Plan Reexamination Report for Phillipsburg, just discussed, under Section 5, Significant Changes and Challenges, there is a consideration of climate change hazard vulnerability and land use planning. The 2021 New Jersey Amendment to the Municipal Land Use Law now requires municipalities to incorporate a climate change-related hazard vulnerability assessment into any master plan land use element adopted after the signing. It is appropriate for that law to be clearly noted in this plan. With that in mind, I would like to praise Mayor Randy Piazza for attending a recent Warren County Environmental Advisory Committee meeting in which Mayor of Hope, Tim McDonough, presented about the Sustainable Jersey program that supports townships in taking sustainable, environmentally friendly initiatives. Mayor Piazza showed sincere interest in Sustainable Jersey by asking questions publicly. I would like Mayor Piazza and Phillipsburg Land Use Board members and other Phillipsburg officials to know that since HOPE's Environmental Commission and Green Team, under the leadership of Chairwoman Monica Sabone and Mayor McDonough, is very active in implementing Sustainable Jersey initiatives, in addition to applying for grants, our Chairwoman welcomes you to contact her for any help you might need in setting up and going forward with any Sustainable Jersey initiative. In particular, and highly connected to the climate change section of your new MP report, Sustainable Jersey has a comprehensive plan ready to offer any municipality that will help in meeting the state law requirements. There is a webinar about this on their website, there's a manual available, and if you hurry, because the deadline is tomorrow, there is an easy application for a grant for technical assistance in township planning for climate change hazards. Hope Township applied, and if we did it, you can do it too. It really is very easy. Finally, regarding the development on Howard Street and the whole concept of climate change hazards, please keep in mind that a warehouse would only complicate challenges for Phillipsburg on the climate change front. In an article on Clean Water Action's website, in July 2024, they state, in recent years, the economic pressure on communities to site warehouses has grown. This pressure has run headlong into the dangers of climate change. The benefits of job growth and ratables can come at a steep cost. Among the costs, increased flood risk, traffic congestion, impacts on air quality, and a disproportionate impact on overburdened communities. Under impacts on air quality, it states, according to the State Planning Commission, emissions of air pollutants and greenhouse gases from diesel-powered delivery vans and tractor-trailers represent the most substantial environmental impact from warehouse facilities. State Planning Commission guidance, page 22. As the Commission report reminds us, there is mounting evidence that diesel exhaust poses major health hazards. The World Health Organization classifies diesel exhaust as carcinogenic to humans, even at low concentrations. The electrification of truck fleets to avoid these harmful emissions appears to be many years away. And regarding overburdened communities, of which the neighborhood next to Howard Street is, it states, warehouse siting disproportionately impacts overburdened communities consisting of low-income residents who may lack the political capital to mount effective opposition to inappropriate warehouse siting. With all of this in mind, and with the hazards of climate change upon us, please take my comments to heart. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
I'm Mike King, 12 Front Street, Phillipsburg. I do want, as to the conversation regarding whether it's residential or industrial Actually, that issue is not resolved. There's litigation about this, still in Superior Court on this issue. So to say that it's resolved and that it's now we're going to be industrial, that's not correct. I also just want to add to the other comments. In the hierarchy of awfulness about warehouses, it's the distance from the highway. That's the key idea. It's got to be on the highway. When we're discussing how our lives have evolved and the warehouses, the thing of it is they've at least got to be on the highway, not 3 miles from the highway. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'm closing public comment. Any discussion by the board?
So, Mr. Duffy, I think at this point, the board has a few options. The board is tasked with providing re-examination. They delegate that to the expert, which is the professional planner, Mr. O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien has made his report, comments, and recommendations. But it's the board that gets to make the final decision on that report. He's only an agent of the board. The board has, in my view, 3 choices. You can call for a vote to adopt his report as written and his recommendations. Number 2, you can carry this to the next meeting for further public hearing. And number 3, you are free to carry it and direct Mr. O'Brien to go back and make additional comments or investigate issues more comprehensively if you don't think they've been done. For instance, there are some people here today who believe that there's been inadequate public input. So again, you can direct Mr. O'Brien to carry this matter and direct Mr. O'Brien to engage the public further. You can carry it to next month for a further public hearing. You really can do whatever you want. Just think about what the comments that were made, think about what Mr. O'Brien said, and the choice is yours.
Okay. Anybody have anything they'd like to? Okay.
Yeah, I think even with the issue of Howard Street, we've been talking about this very publicly for 4 years. 2020, I think, was when we've had a lot of public meetings, public hearings. We've had different people on land use boards. We've had virtual. We've had in-person. Just when it comes to those matters of just that area. As far as the re-examination goes, it's a year behind. It's yet another thing that we're trying to play catch-up on. That was left to for this administration to take over, whether it be bills, re-examinations, filings with the IRS that are, again, either 2-3 years past date. So we are playing a lot of catch-up, so I do apologize if we're trying to push ahead, but we're trying to make sure that things that have not been done in a timely manner and when they should have been done are getting done. And I think the subject matter has been discussed ad nauseum. So.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to.
Oh, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
It's town council that has changed the zoning from residential to industrial. Is that correct? We didn't change that. It came from council, correct? So,
Yeah.
at this point,
The town council asked us to re-examine it. We re-examined it and
But
they made the decision.
Authority,
Yes.
right. The redevelopment authority, they made that decision.
So, it seems to me that they need to go to council.
Well,
Talk to council, complain to them for changing the zoning. It was basically their final decision.
it was their final decision, yes, and it was their initiative to do it.
And at this point, we can't change what council has chosen to do. Only council can do that.
Council has the final say.
So,
I understand what you're
you
saying.
understand what I'm saying? I don't know if we have,
Do we have influence?
We can make
Yes.
recommendations to council, yes, but council gets the final say. And the status quo right now, even though there are legal challenges, the status quo is that is an industrial area.
correct.
So,
So regardless if we adopt this tonight or not, it's not gonna change anything on
in the
the
house.
zoning of that area. It's not gonna come from us anyway.
Oh, and if the zoning changed in that area, even with what this says, the zoning changes, so that part of the reexamination would have to be not necessarily modified, but would have to be changed in the board's thinking. That it got changed, it's not industrial anymore, now we have this.
I would just say, again, I don't advocate a position, that's not my job, it's just to provide guidance. And while there seems to be a lot of emphasis on Howard Street, you have to look at the global issue here. This is a reexamination of the master report as a global document. The public tonight has expressed concerns that they don't believe the Howard Street part of it was adequately addressed, and are suggesting that there's been insufficient time to consider that, insufficient input from the public on that issue, but it's one of many facets of it. So if you believe that the public has not had adequate time to examine and comment on this report, then you may want to consider carrying it. If you believe that the public has had adequate time, then, again, you can vote this up and down or vote for an amendment. But I think what you're hearing here is that there's a concern from the public that they believe they haven't had adequate time to heard. So again, those are your options.
On the conservation, the goals and objectives, I was just reading over it. It looks like they do address some of the environmental aspects of, or that there's a want to address and safeguard those environmental issues. Am I reading that correctly?
You are reading that correctly, and I believe what Mr. O'Brien had said was that there will be a need for the housing and for the climate control, not climate control, but the climate hazards and so forth. We're going to have studies on both of those in the future. Is that correct?
So, to your point, yes, there's a recommendation that the land use plan is thoroughly examined in the future. That would also address the state statute related to hazard vulnerability. That is listed in the document as a major change. It does itemize it. You just didn't copy the full text of the statute. That could be added if desired. And then the housing plan, we identify COA's changed, and there's an obligation to update the housing and fair share plan. So those two are recommendations to be done, because those are more thorough than a re-exam.
Right.
And the goal of this one. And the board member's point on page 21, section 7, this is the goals and objectives revised, so this is as it would be stated going forward. Under conservation, it says identify, preserve environmental features, create a riverfront development plan for the entire length of the river frontage, providing for river-related activities, business, housing, access plans for trails and view areas. There's no change to that. Those two items. Create a continuous greenway trail system along the Lopac Creek and Morris Canal. Identify, remediate, and reuse brownfield sites. So those would be your goals and objectives for under conservation going forward. And then right under that section is the land use, and the first goal objective is to undertake a comprehensive land use element to conform to state requirements for climate change and hazard vulnerability assessment.
I think that was one of the bigger issues that I heard, because I did ask a few people that live in the area. Obviously, I'm a county, so I know some folks down there. I did kind of ask a few questions about that, and I'm conservative. I like to think of myself as being a conservation. You know, I try to recycle everything, folks. I've watched all the documentaries as much as I can, and that would be an issue, obviously, with the warehouse, but I don't think that is something that is absent from what we're looking at. I think this is definitely something that we're looking at. I don't want you to think that we're not looking at it. It was right there, because that was something
Public comments closed.
I looked at it, and when the young lady was speaking, I thought it was addressed, and I think it is addressed. The conservation thing, that's really, really, really important, as much as traffic is, I would say, if not more in today's climate. Right? So it is being addressed, I think, for our sake. Thank you.
As you see the goals and objectives listed, these are to guide future boards, the governing body of how they look at going forward in the town, short-term, long-term.
Right.
So as you read those, if there's something that you would like to see added, you would make a suggestion to the board for
Tonight.
It's in potentially tonight.
I do think as far as the conservation aspect goes, the Highlands Environmental Resource Inventory from 2012 has that area outlined as low watershed, no wetlands, low open water, no riparian area, low watershed area, no riparian integrity, and has 5 severe steep slopes on that area. It also has it listed as not a critical area for wildlife and not a significant area for natural habitat. So if you go look at, so
Where do we find that? I'm sorry, what was that?
the Highlands.
The Highlands.
Highlands Council. So they identified Phillipsburg as Warren County's basic area for multi-use. Phillipsburg is the industrial area of Warren County, so the rest of Warren County can remain what everybody thinks of Warren County is. Phillipsburg has always been the industrial area. Phillipsburg has its elements, it has more dense housing. It's what we are. It's what we've always existed as in Warren County. It's a 2x2 pocket of what kind of a urban area within, a very rural surrounding. So the Highlands kind of addressed that in 2012.
Point of order, if new information is being presented to the community, and I appreciate you reading that for everybody's benefit.
So
but
this
can
has been
we-
available.
Hold
for-
on, let him finish.
Hold on a
Okay,
second,
I
hold on a
mean-
second. Hold on.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, you closed public comment.
Mhm.
Somebody would like to make public comment. So the appropriate thing to do would be to ask the board if they would like to reopen public comment or not.
You want to reopen public comment?
Does anybody want to make a motion to
I
reopen?
have no issue with that.
I'll second.
All right, take a vote.
Voice,
I'll take a roll.
roll call.
Hold on a second.
Take your time.
Motion to reopen public comment.
Piazza's in total denial. He's in a world of his own.
Mr. Branch?
Yes.
Mr. Brodsky?
No.
Mr. Penrose?
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull?
Yes.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Mayor Piazza?
Yes.
And Chairman Duffy?
Yes. Okay. We will reopen public comment at this point.
Thank you. Fred Stine again, and I appreciate this. I know it's going outside of the norm, so it's appreciated. You brought up new information, and some characterizations are made about, that the whole world of the environmental concerns have been met. And I just want to point out that what you read from the characterization of the property, it talked about steep slopes. That's a big issue, because where there's steep slopes and they're clear, they're leveled for a warehouse or for any reason. Now you're creating, as we talked about in this study, you recommend that where there's steep slopes, you have to come up with a steep slope ordinance because there's erosion issues, stormwater issues.
Oh, the hand towels in the bathroom,
And,
okay.
so that one reference does indicate that there's steep slopes on this property, so that's an environmental concern.
It also has it as not a watershed area.
Well, everything's in I think, I don't, if that's what it says, I don't know, because everything's in a watershed area. The watershed is just an area of land, so I'm not really sure. But there's a lot of, we've talked about the air quality, we've talked about air quality. If they clear that site to put the warehouse there, I mean, right now there is like hundreds and hundreds of trees. It's been a successional forest. So right now, that would have to be eliminated in order to put a warehouse. So again, and we're talking, that's why it would be good to have more input from the community and more time to discuss this, because now you're going to clear, we want to talk about climate change and have a climate change vulnerability plan or assessment. Eliminating all those trees, that's what's helping Phillipsburg meet, at least, and again, just a small thing, it's not everything, but all of those hundreds of trees produce oxygen, absorb pollution, manage stormwater, reduce heat island effect. All of these things are impacts to climate change. If you eliminate that for a warehouse, then you've taken a step back. And so just to make sure we're looking at this, and we all recycle and that's good, but that doesn't mean we need to, we have considered all of the environmental impacts to this site. And I really do hope that you plan to delay the vote so you gather some more input from the community and let the folks here come with good information that will help inform and make a better decision. Thank you very much. Thank you again for opening it up.
Excuse me, but I'm late to the show.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Gary Willis. I live at 35 Riverview Road. And just to correct this young lady back here, the environmental, under federal law, in 1996, they passed a law about the EPA on diesel trucks. I've driven truck for 50 years. I know about diesel trucks. I own one. And if you see a diesel truck with a black soot coming out of the stack, that's illegal. That's the law. Okay. All trucks now are mandated to have a DEF tank. And I think Mr. Penrose knows all about that also. Okay, so your environmental status on a diesel truck is limited because the air that comes out of a diesel nowadays, because of the hot box they manufacture on them and put on them to burn the excessive fuel to come out. Are we on the same page?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But my concern is with the warehouse is this. I almost got sideswiped this morning right down here by the laundromat by a tractor trailer. If the laundromat had a car sitting there, I would have been sideswiped because I had to go into the parking lot. I don't think the issue here is the warehouse. I think it's the issue of enforcing the laws that are already on the books with the truck traffic. Go down towards the Free Bridge. 5 to 10 trucks a day go out that way. And I think it's in the bylaws of the town right now that they're not supposed to go that way. Okay? truck traffic comes out of Atlantic States. Same way. They go that way. They go west, whatever you want to call it, by the free bridge. That's where this issue is coming from, because it's not impacting just the streets down there, it's entire community. I followed one up Center Street yesterday, right? He couldn't hardly climb the hill and make the turn to go out of town. This is where I think the enforcement of all the situations has to come into effect. You know, I feel bad for Mr. Perucci because he sat on that land for 20 years. Because I sat on the zoning board. I sat on the school board. I know the dilemma that we're going through here. But this isn't about the warehouse. It's about the community. And to enforce what's on the books. And that's, I feel bad for you. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and Board, for reopening public comments. My understanding is that this document was not completed until about 2 days ago. And if that's the case, this document was not available 10 days ago for the public to review. So I don't believe it's legitimate in taking a vote to accept this document tonight. I think that violates the notification. Thank you.
That's it? Closing public comment. Okay.
So I was just going to say, I think you're back to your options of continuing this to the next month for more public comment at the next land use board meeting, or number two, directing Mr. O'Brien to take into consideration more public input, however he chooses, or number three, voting to adopt as written. Mr. Morrisette makes a fair point. There's I think a legitimate question as to that the board has to decide as to whether they think that the report as distributed by Mr. O'Brien today is different from the report that was posted on or about December 2nd, or whether they view that as de minimis. De minimis under the law means very minor and having no consequence. I don't know if anybody's going to ask me what I think. So
I would like to know what you think.
I would say in an abundance of caution, you should continue this because Mr. O'Brien did hand out documents with changes that he candidly admitted to.
I agree.
And I think in the abundance of caution, and given the response you're getting today, that document that was handed out today could be argued to be more than de minimis. A Superior Court judge would make that decision, and it could very well be determined to be more than de minimis.
Well, with that said, I'd like to make a motion to carry it another month.
Second.
Any suggested adjustment or changes?
In other words, are you making a motion just to carry it
Just to
next
carry so
month?
the public has more
Or-
input, people
Yep.
have more time to digest it.
And what Mr. O'Brien is asking, is there anything additional to that that you want him to look into at the present time, or is it just to carry it generally?
I just want to see it carried, won't, give the public a little bit more time.
Okay, you
I
make that
second.
motion, you second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Branch,
Yes.
Mr. Brodsman,
Yes.
Mr. Penrose,
Yes.
Mr. Turnbull,
Yes.
Mr. Knoll,
Yes.
Mayor Piazza,
Yes.
and Chairman Duffy.
Yes. Okay,
So the meeting will be carried without any further notice to January 23rd, 2025. And the document that was presented tonight will be uploaded on the website.
is there any public comment? Seeing none, I close it. We don't need an executive session. Anyone have anything for the good of the order?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you. Same. Okay, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it.